We are told it is a preparation for life, a sacred space of learning. But what if the most profound lessons were not in the curriculum, but in the hidden curriculum? We learn to equate our worth with a letter or a number, a permanent judgment in a ledger. We were taught to sit still, to quiet our curiosity, to swallow our questions for the sake of the schedule. We internalized the fear of being wrong, of the red pen's sharp criticism, of public shame. We were sorted and ranked, not by the depth of our character, but by our ability to regurgitate facts on command. This system did not fill us with knowledge so much as it instilled a deep-seated anxiety. It planted a voice that whispers we are not enough, that we are perpetually behind, that we are defined by our failures. We carry these scars long after the graduation caps have been thrown. We see them in the adult who is paralyzed by perfectionism, terrified of taking a creative risk. We see them in the colleague who relentlessly compares their success to others, forever feeling inadequate. We see them in the quiet resignation of those who follow paths they never chose, believing it's too late to start over. The factory of education doesn't just produce graduates. It produces a specific kind of human, one shaped for compliance and repetition. This is the story of that assembly line, the invisible wounds it inflicts, and the heavy, unseen weight we all now carry. To understand the school system, you must first forget it was built to unleash human potential. It was engineered in a time of crisis, during the 19th century's Industrial Revolution, by the new titans of industry who faced a problem. Their empires required an obedient workforce for their factories and a stable society to protect their fortunes, viewing the influx of diverse children not as minds to nurture but as a potential threat to control. They decided to build a system in their own image, the factory model, because it was efficient, scalable, and produced a predictable product. The school became a factory, where the bell was a conditioning whistle and the standardized curriculum was an assembly line installing identical parts. The grades were a quality control mechanism, but the most important, unlisted subject was knowing your place, a design that deliberately sorted the masses from the elites. They didn't hide this, speaking in their own memos of fostering habits of industry and creating a manageable citizenry to engineer a social order that would remain unchallenged. So, before we ever picked up a textbook, the fundamental lesson was embedded in the bricks and the bells. We were not there to learn how to think, but to learn how to be told. They wrote the system, and for over a century, we have been living inside their text, carrying its blueprint into our adult lives.
That was the way the liberal elites regard it, and they're more or less accurate. So the educational system is supposed to train people to be obedient, conformist, not think too much, do what you're told, stay passive, don't cause any crises of democracy, don't raise any questions, and so on. That's basically what the system is about. Even the fact that the system has a lot of stupidity in it, I think, has a function. You know, it means that people are filtered out for obedience. If you can guarantee lots of stupidity in the educational system, you know, like stupid assignments and things like that, you know that the only people who will make it through are people like me and like most of you, I guess, who are willing to do it no matter how stupid it is, because we want to go to the next step, you know. So you may know that this assignment is idiotic and the guy up there couldn't think his way out of a paper bag, but you'll do it anyway because that's the way you get to the next class, and you want to make it and so on and so forth. Well, there are people who don't do that, you know. There are people who say, I'm not going to do it, it's too ridiculous, you know. Those people are called behavioral problems, or something like that. They end up in the principal's office or in the streets or selling drugs or whatever. And all of this is a technique for selection for obedience.
The blueprint required a precise psychological machinery to shape how we think, and this was achieved through several core mechanisms. The cult of the single right answer, drilled into us via standardized tests, taught us that our primary job was not to solve novel problems but to guess the pre-approved solution held by an authority. Our innate curiosity was systematically fragmented by the bell schedule, training us to disconnect from our own deep interests and conditioning us for a life of interrupted focus and context switching. Most profoundly, we were trapped in a system of extrinsic punishment and reward, where gold stars and red pens taught us to seek validation from outside authorities, forging a lifelong dependency on external approval for our sense of worth. This machinery was never applied equally. It was fine-tuned to meticulously replicate the class structure. with schools in wealthier districts often fostering the creativity of future managers, while schools in poorer districts doubled down on the obedience and rote tasks for the managed. The real curriculum we internalized was not the academic subjects, but this deep, subconscious training in seeking permission, fearing failure, and looking outside ourselves for validation, so that we didn't just pass through the factory. We learned to become its operators, running the machinery on ourselves long after we left its walls. The factory's machinery may still echo within us. In the flinch we feel at a mistake, the hunger for external validation, and the fragmented attention we bring to our deepest goals. But the most critical lesson, the one the system could never teach, is the one we must now teach ourselves: how to unlearn. This begins by dismantling the cult of the single right answer and redefining failure as essential data, granting ourselves permission to be beginners and to find our own solutions through messy, iterative discovery. We must reclaim our time and focus, consciously rejecting the factory's fragmented bells to protect periods of deep, uninterrupted work where curiosity can truly flourish. Furthermore, we must stage a quiet coup against the system of extrinsic rewards by cultivating intrinsic motivation, learning to find the gold star within through the quiet satisfaction of mastery and purpose-driven work. Ultimately, this unlearning empowers us to build new systems in education and the workplace that prioritize critical thinking, autonomy, and collaboration over compliance, transforming the inherited blueprint from a life sentence into a choice we are no longer willing to make. So what can we do? The final, essential step in our journey is to move beyond personal unlearning and collectively author a new syllabus for the future, building ecosystems that actively nurture human potential instead of compliance. This means championing real-world models, from micro schools focused on projects to workplaces that value impact over presence, all centered on a single, radical principle: cultivating agency over obedience. It is not about creating another rigid system, but about fostering a distributed, living network of communities where individuals, from childhood onward, feel they are the authors of their own lives and can directly influence their world. The ultimate goal is to stop trying to reform the obsolete factory and instead ignite a constellation of gardens, countless, self-correcting environments where the focus shifts from filling passive vessels to lighting the innate, creative fire within every person.